Hi, good evening, and welcome back to today's daily newspaper analysis. I welcome you all back. Today, of course, in the morning, we were greeted by news of the ceasefire between the United States and Iran. We have yet to see if Israel will follow through fully. That is, of course, something to be seen. So, today we'll be beginning with that. We'll be focusing on that. Of course, the ceasefire was announced early in the morning by our time, and therefore it was not in the newspapers. So I've added a few slides detailing the events as they took place. So we'll look at statements from the Iranian Foreign Minister Araqchi, from Donald Trump, from Netanyahu, and from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who's been serving as a mediator in these talks. So without any further ado, let's make a start. So over the last couple of days, Trump's threats against Iran have been escalating. In fact, he put out quite frankly an unhinged rant saying that an entire civilization would die. This was widely condemned within the United States. Politicians called for his removal because of that. This, of course, would indicate not only an intention to commit war crimes but also crimes against humanity. Possibly also it might exhibit genocidal intent, right? So this was roundly condemned by the entire world. However, what was Trump's ask? Trump was saying that unless you agree to our demands, unless there is a ceasefire, unless you open the Strait of Hormuz, we will destroy your civilization. In any case, his statement deserved condemnation, and it did receive condemnation both within the United States and abroad. So that was the statement Trump had made over the last couple of days. This was, of course, followed by an Iranian response. Iran called for people to form human chains around important infrastructure and power plants, which Trump had threatened to destroy. However, coming straight to this morning, a statement was released from the account of Donald J. Trump, where he announced a 2-week ceasefire. Okay, so this is important, a 14-day ceasefire. Now, it's important to go through his statement. So he begins with, based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan and Field Marshal Asim Munir, who is the Chief of Defense Forces of Pakistan. So Pakistan has played the role of a mediator, of go-between, between Iran and the United States. So Trump acknowledges that and says that subject to Iran agreeing to the safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. So this is the condition imposed by the United States. He has agreed to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks or 14 days. All right. Then, of course, he lays out his talking points. We've achieved our objectives and so on and so forth. But the key thing to note here is his statement that we received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. So this will be quite important. We'll see what those 10 points were, but effectively, this constitutes a back down by the United States. It constitutes the retreat of the United States because those 10 points given by Iran, which are called workable by the President of the United States, are almost entirely one-sided in favor of Iran. Now, around the same time, a statement was released by Sayyid Abbas Araqchi, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran. And here he releases a statement on behalf of the Supreme National Security Council of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And he says, he also expresses his gratitude to the mediators, that is the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and by name refers to both Asim Munir, Field Marshal, the Chief of Defense Forces, and Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Then he says considering the request by the US for negotiations based on its 15-point proposal and based on the announcement by the President of the United States about acceptance of the general framework of Iran's 10-point proposal as a basis for negotiations. So here Iran refers to the fact that the US had given a 15-point proposal. In response, Iran gave a 10-point proposal, which has been accepted by the President of the United States as the basis or framework for negotiations. Based on this, an order is issued saying if the attacks against Iran are halted or stopped, our powerful armed sources will cease their defensive operations. Right? So, from both sides, Trump says the condition is the Strait of Hormuz has to open. Based on that, we will stop or cease all fighting. Iran says if the attacks against Iran are stopped, then we will agree to stop fighting. Okay? So here Iran gives that concession and says for a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible in coordination with the armed forces of Iran. Okay, so safe passage is allowed by Iran in its statement for a ceasefire. Okay, so those are the top updates from this morning. This was accompanied by a statement from Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, where he says that the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States, along with their allies. Okay, now most importantly, we will have to consider whether the state of Israel has truly accepted this ceasefire. To an immediate ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and elsewhere, effective immediately. Right? Now, this is going to be belied by the statement of Benjamin Netanyahu, which we will see soon. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, has announced that he does stand with the United States in his ceasefire in Iran, but it shall not apply to Lebanon. It shall not apply to the invasion and occupation of Lebanon, which has been done by the State of Israel. Okay, so the statement of Shehbaz Sharif to some degree has been belied, and it shows that the United States and Israel are at the end of the day on different pages when it comes to this war and this ceasefire. Then Shehbaz Sharif invites delegations of both sides to Islamabad for what he calls the Islamabad talks, right? With an end or with a view to end the war for good. Okay, so those are the updates. Iran and the United States announce a ceasefire. Iran agrees for 2 weeks the Strait of Hormuz is free, open, and clear in coordination with their armed forces. Trump agrees to stop attacking, and Trump agrees that the 10-point plan of Iran becomes the basis or framework for future negotiations. The PM of Pakistan announces the same, but also says it applies to the allies, meaning Israel on the side of the United States, and the other non-state actors which are allied with Iran. Let's say, for example, Hezbollah, the axis of resistance. Also, his statement says it extends to Lebanon, but this has been belied by the state of Israel. The PM of Israel has said that this does not apply to Lebanon. Okay, so by the nature of these things, it will clear up over the coming days. Now, why did I say that this agreement of the United States to the 10-point plan as a basis for negotiations is, in a real sense, a victory for Iran? Because these 10 points included lifting of all sanctions against Iran, stoppage of all fighting, a complete end to the war, not a temporary ceasefire, stoppage of the war against Iran's allies, Iranian sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz moving forward. This is a big deal, right? Because before this war, Iran did not exercise full sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so these 10 points of Iran, which have been accepted by the United States as a basis for negotiations, are essentially one-sided and are in favor of the Iranian position. So Trump's acceptance of the same is ultimately a retreat for the United States. Interestingly, in today's newspaper, there was an article about talking peace, why mediation still matters, right? I guess that point has been proved by the news and events of this morning. So, if you don't know, what is mediation? In mediation, two parties to a dispute, let's say X and Y, resolve their dispute with the assistance of a third neutral person, whom we can call the mediator. Okay, so essentially mediation is resolution of a dispute with the assistance of a neutral third party who has the confidence of both sides. The job of the mediator is not to take sides. His job is to help the two parties talk to each other. Mediation is important in interpersonal disputes, in commercial disputes, and even in geostrategic or geopolitical disputes. Right? So, an interesting article in the Hindu today about the importance of mediation in a world at war. Now, moving forward to the other news for today. Yesterday, the Supreme Court began its hearing into the Sabrimala case. Remember, this is a 9-judge bench, and all benches of 5 or more judges are referred to as constitution benches. So the 9-judge bench hearing this case is also a constitution bench. What is the name of this case? This case is Kantaru Rajivaru versus Indian Young Lawyers Association. How did this case arise? Initially, it was simply a case about entry of all women into Sabrimala in Kerala. Okay? Now, why do I say all women? Because the traditional rule for the Sabrimala temple was that menstruating women could not enter this temple. Of course, it's an illogical and absurd rule. Now, what was the logic? The logic was that the god who resides at Sabrimala is a brahmachari, is an ascetic. Okay? And so, menstruating women should not go into this temple. Now, the Indian Young Lawyers Association filed a case and won a victory before a 5-judge bench by 4:1. Okay, this happened in 2018, and the Supreme Court in Indian Young Lawyers Association, in that case, stated that women of all ages could enter Sabrimala temple, and that not allowing women to do so would violate not just the right to equality, it would violate the abolition of untouchability, it would also violate the right to freedom of religion of women, because all persons have the equal right to the freedom of religion. So in 2018, the Supreme Court allowed the entry of all women into Sabrimala. Men were always allowed. So this happened in 2018 by a 5-judge bench by 4:1. Interestingly, the 4 male judges on the bench ruled that women should be allowed, and the 1 female judge on the bench, Justice Indu Malhotra, ruled that the court should not interfere in these affairs. Then somebody filed a review petition, and by 3:2, the review bench said, yes, there needs to be a review. And there are larger questions which need to be answered, and so we are referring this matter to a larger bench. Okay? And that is how, that reference made by the review bench is what is being heard by the 9-judge bench. But now the case is not just about Sabrimala. There are broad questions about the rights of religious denominations and about whether other fundamental rights can prevail over such illogical rules of religious denomination. Okay, so that is the background. The 9-judge bench hearing is taking place. It's taken place today as well. For this year's CLAT and ALET, this is going to be very important, not just for legal reasoning, but also for GK and current affairs. Remember, this is the second 9-judge bench hearing that is taking place this year. The first took place in March about the definition of the word industry. Moving forward, the first member of parliament from a national law university, Menaka Guruswamy, who is from the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. She's taken her oath as a member of parliament. And with this, she has also made the record for being the first person from the LGBTQ community to become a member of parliament in India. So she is the first person from the LGBTQ community to become a member of parliament in India. She, of course, has won an election and she's become a member of parliament in the Rajya Sabha. So her name is Menaka Guruswamy. The Trinamool Congress nominated her as a candidate and she won her election, making two records. First, as the first LGBTQ member of parliament in Indian history, and second, as the first person from a national law university to become a member of parliament. Moving forward, an excellent article in the Indian Express today by Yogendra Yadav about the SIR, or Special Intensive Revision, which has been conducted by the Election Commission and is being conducted by the Election Commission across the country. And Yogendra Yadav makes a case that the Supreme Court must intervene to prevent the disenfranchisement of lakhs of voters, to prevent lakhs of voters from losing their right to vote. Okay? So please keep this one in mind. The topic of the special intensive revision by the Election Commission is vitally important. You must also not forget the name of the Chief Election Commissioner. He is Gyanesh Kumar. Remember, the opposition has been trying to impeach him. So they gave a notice of the motion to remove him or impeach him. And just in the last 1 or 2 days, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha and the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha rejected the notices given by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members respectively. Next, another interesting article today by Manoj Jha, and he says, on extremism, let's not be selective in our outrage. Okay, it's a lovely article. If you want to practice questions on this from the English section, you can find those on today's Roznama. If you go to clatpossible.com and click on free material, you can log into the Roznama at no charge and practice questions from each and every section on the editorials of each day. There's an archive starting from January, so there's a lot of material for you to practice. It's the best way to stay updated. We also give you the top 5 news stories of the day, the top words, and an exercise to practice those words. Okay, so absolutely make use of that. Here, of course, Manoj Jha's point is that in the whole discussion about left-wing extremism, let's not forget the force of right-wing extremism that shows its ugly head every day in this country, where in the name of majoritarianism, certain people and communities are victimized on a daily basis. So that's essentially his point. I would advise you to read the article. It's a marvelous one. And he makes an interesting point Whether you agree or not, it's a thought-provoking article that he has written. Now, on to Artemis 2. As you all know, Artemis 2 was launched by NASA, sending 4 astronauts on a lunar flyby. Please remember, this mission was not an orbiter, meaning in this mission, they are not flying in the orbit of the moon. They are not orbiting the moon. It's a flyby mission. Okay? Now, these 4 astronauts have made several records, being the first woman ever to go beyond low Earth orbit, the oldest person to go beyond low Earth orbit, the first non-US citizen to go beyond low Earth orbit, and the first person of color, non-white person, to go beyond low Earth orbit. It's a significant mission. Remember, the vehicle is called Orion. The launch vehicle is called the Space Launch System. It's by NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. It's named after Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, who is in Greek mythology the twin sister of the god Apollo, the god of medicine. So as you know, the US's past successful missions were all named after Apollo, right? And through those missions, the first set of lunar records were made. The first humans to fly by the moon, the first humans to orbit the moon, the first humans to land on the moon, and the first humans to come back from the moon, right? That's where the records were made by Neil Armstrong as well. Okay, now Artemis 2 has made another record. This is the farthest away from Earth that any humans have ever gone. Okay, so this is the farthest away from Earth. Humans have never been this far from the Earth as the crew of Artemis 2. Okay, so read more about it in today's newspaper, but this is the important record that you have to remember from the perspective of GK and current affairs. Moving forward, Vietnam has elected To Lam. Okay, so Vietnam has elected To Lam, the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam, as the President of Vietnam. So just keep this in mind. This is a similar model as China, where Xi Jinping is the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China and also the President of the country itself. Okay, so Vietnam has gone on a similar route, and the General Secretary of the Vietnamese Communist Party, To Lam, has now been elected as the President of Vietnam. Now, you would have seen over the last 2 days the news about the nuclear power station at Kalpakkam. Okay, so this is an article, I believe, in the Indian Express discussing the importance of that. So what was the news story? That the fast breeder reactor, it's called PFBR. Okay, so what are PFBRs? PFBRs are prototype fast breeder reactor. So this prototype fast breeder reactor at Kalpakkam in Tamil Nadu, fully indigenously built, commissioned by the company known as Bhavini, Bhavini, whose full form it is your homework to check. This attained criticality. Okay, this is being described in this article as a critical step in the 3-stage nuclear program. Why 3-stage? There are 3 stages. The first stage for PHWRs. What are PHWRs? Pressurized heavy water reactors. That was stage 1. We have already attained it in the past. This current achievement is for stage 2, the fast breeder reactor stage, right? Prototype fast breeder reactor. That is what has attained criticality. And finally, the third stage, which is yet to be achieved, which are your thorium-based reactors. Okay, so please keep this in mind. This is an important piece of news. As you know, in other news, India is also running a nuclear energy mission to build small modular reactors, 5 by 2033. We also have a long term target of 100 gigawatts through nuclear capacity by 2047, right? So please keep all of those disparate pieces of news in mind. Amidst all of that news, the prototype fast breeder reactor at Kalpakkam in Tamil Nadu has attained criticality. Moving forward, there have been several retrospective articles today, so I'll just flag these news stories for you. This is an article talking about delimitation and women's reservation. It's a great article to understand what is about to take place within a week or 10 days, because on 16th of April, Parliament is reconvening to consider changes to women's reservation that were introduced by the 106th Amendment Act. So there's likely to be another new constitution amendment, possibly the 107th, in order to make sure that the one-third reservation for women in Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha comes to fruition at an earlier date. Okay? To do this, what has been proposed by the government? The government is proposing that every state will now have 1.5 times its current number of seats in Lok Sabha. And on that number, the one-third women's reservation will apply. Okay, so a great article in today's The Hindu, which you should take a look at to understand what is about to take place. Then this was a retrospective article talking about the limits of neutrality in addressing caste. So this is talking about the equity regulations issued by the University Grants Commission in January and stayed by the Supreme Court in January itself on relatively flimsy grounds. People had a problem with specifically mentioning caste discrimination here. And what this author argues in The Hindu today is that caste neutrality is not the right way to think about eliminating caste discrimination. Because a lot of times caste discrimination occurs with the face of caste neutrality. So, an interesting perspective which you should read. Next, another one about India's updated climate pledges. Okay, so as you know, India submitted its latest nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement, under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And on 3 metrics, India submitted the new NDCs. We have, of course, discussed this in great detail in past Roznama daily newspaper videos. So I advise you to go back and look at them. Okay? So this is homework for you to revise something that was announced last month. Moving forward, yesterday, April 7th, as you know, was World Health Day, but it was also the day of remembrance relating to the Tutsi genocide or the Rwandan genocide that took place in 1994, which was committed by the Hutu-controlled government of Rwanda and the militias in that country against the Tutsi people. You must keep it in mind, April 7th is the day of remembrance because this genocide is said to have begun on the 7th of April in 1994. What is a genocide? It is the mass killing or extermination of a group of people with the intent of eradicating them in whole or in part, based on their nationality, religion, race, or ethnicity. The most recent news about genocides in the world over the last few years has, of course, been about the genocide committed by the state of Israel against the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza, right? Historically, of course, we know about the Holocaust, which was the mass extermination of the Jewish people by Nazi Germany during World War II. So that's all for today. I know we had a slightly long session, but there was important news to share about the ceasefire which was reached between Iran and the United States, the role played by Pakistan as a mediator, and the problems with this ceasefire. Because Israel says they agree to the ceasefire, but not in Lebanon. What unfolds in the coming days, we shall have to see. Only time will tell the course of this war. One can only hope and pray that the countries of the world, especially Iran and the United States, are able to come to an agreement to stop this war. That's all for today. Good evening, good night, and goodbye. I'll see you all the day after tomorrow.